Subscribe or they will haunt you.
People of Reddit that believe in the paranormal, ghosts, demons, angels, etc. What exactly happened to make you start believing? I'm not overly religious or religious at all really, but I have a solid belief in guardian angels. When I was younger, I would have nightmares that would haunt me for months at a time, making it so that I will struggle to sleep for fear of the nightmares returning. Well, eventually I decided to try praying every night before bed, not to any deity in particular, just to my guardian angel. The night that I started praying was the night that the nightmares stopped. At first I thought it was just coincidence, but the next time that I had a nightmare was on a night when I had fallen asleep without praying. It's been 4 years and I still pray every night, still to my angel, and every night I get a peaceful rest. I haven't really had anything happen to me as an adult that has reconfirmed my beliefs, but my mom always used to tell me stories of stuff that would happen to her when I was a baby and we were renting a specific house in the hills. She said unexplained things always used to happen to her after I was born, such as taps turning on in the kitchen by themselves when she was sitting in the lounge room and could see the kitchen sink from where she was. Pictures would fall from the walls, but when she would look at the nail, it was sticking out straight and not bent, therefore making the picture fall. The rocking chair in the lounge would often rock as though someone was in it. And the creepiest of all, if you ask me, she would hear footsteps go up the stairs and into the room above my room, and hear something playing with all my toys. I was a tiny baby, so it wasn't me. Safe to say Mom never left me in a room on my own. I thought that I struck and killed a girl that wasn't there. I was driving home late at night from a double shift, so admittedly I was tired. I had my radio blaring to keep awake. I was driving through the backwoods on a road that I had learned to take as the occasional shortcut. During the day the road was busy and congested, but at night it was always empty save for a stray deer or raccoon. I'm driving, jamming out, and admittedly speeding. I take a corner too quickly and there in front of me was a young girl about 19 or 20 with long dark hair, wearing jeans and a light-colored blouse. For a split second I saw her eyes reflected in the headlights, saw the look of shock and fear on her face, and I swerved hard off the road and into a ditch. There was no way that I didn't hit her. I jumped out of the car and started walking back to the spot I had last seen her and flagged down a passing car to tell them to call 911. This was in the days before everyone had cell phones. Cops came, EMT came, and there was no one, no body, no girl, and I was given a sobriety test on the spot. I get home much later than I should have, and my wife is waiting for me as I hadn't arrived on time. I'm shaken as I can still see the girl's face in my head, and I recount the story to my wife, who goes white. She runs upstairs and grabs a yearbook and tells me to flip through the senior pictures. Page 3. There she is, looking exactly as I had seen and described her. I asked my wife if she knows the girl, or if she has hers or her family's number. That's when my wife informs me that the girl died 3 years prior during a hit and run around that exact curve. I wasn't from the area. There were no ghost stories involving that road. And I had no way of knowing that the girl that I picked out of a lineup of seniors was already dead. To this day I still wonder what happened. Was I tired? Had I heard her name or seen her face on a memorial newscast or clipping and not registered it? Or had I actually encountered what to this very moment I still consider the most terrifying event in my life, as I honest to God thought I was going to jail? I'm not 100% positive, but I can say this: I can still see her face lit up by my headlights, clear as a goddamn bell. When I was a kid I had an imaginary friend called Mr. Johnson. I would talk to and play with him all day, and my parents mostly ignored it because it seemed harmless. Well, one day while my mom was out watering the yard, A neighbor walked by and started a conversation. He said he was surprised that she moved in there because it was supposedly haunted and that the previous tenant had died in the house. His name was Mr. Johnson. After that, my parents got really uncomfortable when I talked to my friend and I eventually stopped interacting with him. I also have a very vivid memory of talking to something on a curtain rod in the same house. I can remember what we were talking about, only that its voice was kind of raspy and weird. When my dad came in and asked WTF I was doing, I remember the thing saying, "Say I God." So I told my dad I was talking to God and thought the freaked out look he gave me was hilarious, even though I had no real understanding of what God was or why that was such a strange thing to say. Also, while I did relay this exactly as I experienced it, I know kids are weird and unreliable. As far as I know, I just lived in an old, nasty house with a bug infestation. Maybe the landlord was trying to scare us into moving out. Our rent was late more than once. Hiya. When I was 10, my family moved to an old house in a small town. The night we moved in, I saw a dark figure in the master bedroom mirror behind me. A man in a wide-brimmed hat, but just a black silhouette. Everyone in the house had vivid nightmares nearly every night the entire time we lived there. My younger brother couldn't sleep because of zombies in our room. I had a bunk bed that was a twin on top and a double on the bottom. One night, dead asleep, I somehow flew so hard off the top bunk that I landed a good foot away from the bed without touching the bottom bunk, which jutted out over a foot from the top. One morning, the kitchen floor was completely covered in maggots. One morning, there was a mass of lizard corpses in the pantry, melted together in various stages of decay. There was no way it was there before. Someone would have noticed. It was smelly and in plain sight. Finally, the trigger for my mom to say, "Fuck this shit, I'm out." There was a large building behind our house that had been some type of big shed. We didn't choose it because there was a giant beehive basically taking up an entire wall. I don't remember who saw it first, but there was a blurry, white apparition in the building's window. A woman in an older, traditional dress, the kind with a headscarf and apron. She was looking to the left. All of us saw her, 4 people, and just stared for several minutes. I've blocked out a lot of that time in my life, but I remember enough to know there was something wrong with that house. My childhood best friend had a Rottweiler, Tyler, who passed away a few years before we started hanging out. One night, I spent the night at his house and woke up in the middle of the night to a Rottweiler staring me in the face. I thought it was his new Rottweiler Rowdy he had, so I went to pet it and my hand just went right through it. I told him about it the next morning and they said it was normal for them to see or hear him still roaming around the house every once in a while. I had a few paranormal interactions since, but that was the one that solidified my beliefs. My aunt used to live in an old, pre-Civil War house. The upstairs gave off a really creepy vibe to it. It wasn't used, so no one had any reason to go up there. A lot of the time her and I would leave to run errands. We would come back and all the lights would be on upstairs in every room. Mind you, she lived alone. Well, one night we both walked up there to turn them off, and as we rounded the corner on the steps we saw an old man at the top, and then he vanished right in front of both of us. My aunt and I both hightailed out of there as fast as we could. I didn't stay the night with her again until she moved out of that place. Was sitting on the couch downstairs and could hear someone walking loudly up the stairs. Problem is, the stairs were on the other side of the room from where I was hearing this. Sound was clear as day. I went upstairs and as 21-year-old I fell asleep on my parents' bedroom floor that night. It freaked me out so bad. Next morning, of course, my mom is asking, WTF, am I sleeping in their room? And I explain I heard the stomping up the stairs but no stairs there, and her mouth mouth gaped open. Damned it, the house hadn't been partially gutted and redone in 1989, 10 years before we moved in, and the stairs used to be exactly where I heard the stomping. I refused to believe my mom until we went upstairs, and sure enough she showed me there was an indent in the ceiling right where the wall partitioning the room from the stairs would have been. I never believed in anything like that before. I'm still not sure I do. I mean, if I didn't learn that the stairs had been there, I would have thought I just went a bit nuts in the head for a minute instead of believing I was hearing ghosts or something, but the remodel moving stairs was just too much of a coincidence. My home we bought is haunted, and it's been interesting because I am an astrophysicist by trade, and it's been interesting to take what I know to be true in the universe and place that with what I and my family live with. All that being said, we adore her. I have probably the friendliest, most helpful ghost in the world. When we bought the house we knew it was funky. Even weirder is 3 days after we moved in I realized that I had seen this house before from the angle I was sitting in on the couch in my dreams over various years. Anyways, the first thing we noticed was little things. If we left lights in they would switch off. You would hear the click of the switch. I heard walking around in my son's room one day. Didn't think anything of it for a full 20 minutes and then realized, fuck, I'm home alone. Like I heard his door open and walking around. Okay, spooky but harmless. If we lose something and we audibly say it's missing, within around half a day it will be found in plain sight on the table or couch. We always say thank you. Our cats will arch up and purr like someone is petting them. My daughter has been tucked in before. She thought it was me. Nope, we love her. The only thing we have issues with is no laundry machines past 9 p.m. We have locking front loaders. Once they are started it's a bitch to get them open. If someone starts a late load you will come down to the door open and machine off. Only past 9. So now we just respect it. I don't know who she is, but this is her home too. We love her and say thank you and talk to her. All of us do. Guests have told us our house is haunted without us telling them. My all-time favorite story is I have a friend who doesn't believe in ghosts and she spent the whole day talking mad shit. She retires to one of the guest rooms and within 20 minutes she comes down sobbing and her ear is bright red. She was half asleep and she heard soft movements and the whack someone flicked her ear hard. She doesn't talk shit anymore or stay over. That's the only time Our Lady has been aggressive, but I'm glad she is here. She is our family now, as creepy and weird and dumb as that sounds. Probably too late now for anyone to see this, but it's something that always made me think. When my sister was a baby, she was always crying and would not sleep through the night unless she was in bed with my mom. My stepfather worked nights at a hospital, so he was not there when this occurred. Mom told me she woke up because she felt a hard, bony finger tapping on her shoulder. She woke with a start to this finger and realized in the night she had rolled on top of my sister and was suffocating her. If she had not woke up, my sister would have probably died. My mom turned around in a panic, thinking my stepdad had came home early and had poked her to wake her up. But he was not there, and wasn't there till the next morning. She swears to this day that an angel tapped her to wake her up to save my sister. When I was 20 or so, I worked for a carpet cleaning service. It was really just me and the 2 other guys who started it. I eventually proved myself and they gave me a van and my own clients to work. So I head up into the rural Tennessee hills to do a job one morning. It was a private house. I spoke with a middle-aged woman who owned it and began my process, pulling out the machine, hooking up to a water source, etc. As I make my way through the house, I noticed that the woman I spoke with was hanging out in the kitchen, and there was the husband doing work in the garage and out front. No other signs of people in the house. I'm making my way down the main hallway straight into the master bedroom. I assumed. As I push the machine in the room, watching what I doing on the floor, I see an older woman out of the corner of my eye. She is wearing a white gown, standing up out of a chair in the far right corner of the room. I look up to apologize and I see her briskly walk around an alcove where this chair was. I could not see the right wall of this alcove, so I assumed it was an exit and she was simply leaving so I could finish. I continue and make my way to the alcove, and as I turn into it, I see that it is a closet with the door ajar and light off. My heart sank and I half-assed the rest of that job and booked it out of there. It never felt aggressive or anything, peaceful actually, just an old soul hanging out, I guess. 15 years later and it's still so vivid in my mind. My mom told me this story a long time ago when I asked her if she ever had any weird experiences. She was in her apartment in her bed, no roommates, when she felt someone brushing her hair. Her mom would come over and do that often, so she assumed it was her and didn't look back. That when the phone started ringing, she didn't get up until about a minute past and the brushing stopped. She answered the phone and it was her mom. Okay. This happened when I was 6 and I am nearly 50 now, so my memory is a little hazy. I had a friend the same age as me called Kelly. We used to hang out together with other children who lived in our block and local area. One afternoon Kelly knocked on my door. I answered and she asked if I could go to the corner shop with her to get some bananas so that we could make a milkshake. Before I could answer, my stepmother called down the stairs to say I had to clean my room and was not going anywhere. Kelly kind of shrugged and said she was going anyway, and that was the last I saw of her. Early evening came and her mother had knocked on every door looking for her. All of the dads got together and went looking for her. It got later and later, and when I went to bed she had still not been found. In the early hours of the morning I heard a noise outside of my bedroom window, a kind of intermittent moaning. When I looked out, I saw a policeman was sat on the wall sobbing and being comforted by another policeman. I watched for a while and then went downstairs. My dad told me Kelly had been found dead in the cops in front of our block. I later found out Kelly had been murdered by one of the older boys who hung out with us. I had to give a statement as I had seen Kelly the day before. Later police fed back that Kelly had been killed hours before she knocked on my door, and that my recollection of events was impossible. The man who owned the corner shop said Kelly had never come in to buy bananas. I'm pretty sure the police thought I was lying and that my mother was either lying as well or mistaken about what she'd heard. From that time onwards I have believed that Kelly came to visit one more time before she left for good, and since then the idea of the paranormal has just seemed normal.